It's now 6 p.m. on January 14th. I'm going to go ahead and call the Holly Hill City Commission meeting to order. At this time, if you have any electronic devices that make any sounds, if you could please silence them. Val, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Snow?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Delanoy?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson? Mayor Penny?
Here. Just for the record, Commissioner Johnson is having a medical procedure this afternoon and is unavailable. So we send our good wishes to him. And at this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Commissioner Deborah Snow to our invocation. If everyone please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
As we gather today to discuss the affairs of our community, we ask for wisdom, understanding, and compassion. May our deliberations be guided by the needs of our citizens, and may we find common ground in our decisions and work together for the betterment of our city. We ask for open hearts and minds as we navigate the challenges before us. Let us proceed with integrity and respect for one another, and with a grateful heart for the opportunity to serve. Let us all say amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So at this time, we have a presentation regarding 1088 10th Street update. Would you like to come forward? State your name and the city that you live in for the record.
I live in Atlanta, Florida.
Thank you.
I'm executive director of HH Supported Housing. We are a 36-year-old nonprofit. Together with a large Miami developer, Housing Trust Group, in the business of developing affordable housing for the homeless and low-income population of Central Florida. We have received financing from the state and approval from you folks for the construction of 70 apartments at 1088 10th Street, half of which will be for homeless individuals, and the rest will be for what we call workforce housing, people earning up to around $55,000 a year. We recently completed a similar development in Cocoa. The site has now been cleared and construction will start shortly, but we need to ask for your help with something else.
So the site around...
I'm sorry, you need to
sorry.
tell us your name, please.
Miriam Moore, I'm from Cocoa.
Thank you.
So the sites around it is single families and some small businesses. And in our experience in the neighborhood, sometimes there's a mix of reactions to developments coming in. Some are very happy, some are not so happy. Some of the positives we have are that there's no more homeless camps in the area. There's no more threats of needles or waste and things like that. There's no, there will be homeless residents, but they're in secure properties, and they're no longer homeless. We also have 24/7 security and stuff like that in our properties. And then there's a reduction of incursions into family property by vermin and things like that in the area, because there's not all the wooded area around it. Some of the negatives is the noise and the traffic, especially during the development period. So our experience has also told us that if we're upfront with the neighbors in the beginning, these are easy issues to diffuse, and we don't usually have hostilities for the development. So we'd like to organize a town hall meeting, just something with the community, with the neighborhood as soon as possible, to listen to what they have to say about this, and let them know who we are and what we're there for, what we're going to be doing, and how it's going to help them. And we did this in Cocoa, and it is we had no pushback from NIMBYism. And it was, we would just like the council to show their support by helping us organize some type of meeting. And then maybe have a council member act as a moderator for the meeting, if that's something that you would consider.
I'm not quite certain about the logistics of that. we could certainly meet with Mr. Forte about that, but I'm not certain how we would facilitate that with one commissioner facilitating that meeting.
We've never really done anything like that, but if you remember, Mayor
Right.
Hill wanted us to do some, I call them tailgate meetings with the communities prior to a development getting started. It gives an opportunity for the developer to meet with the community, let them know what's going on. They hear directly from the developer of what's actually taking place and not necessarily any rumors that are going on. And I'm not quite sure what the format is that you're looking for, but even a tailgate type of a meeting at the back of, some vehicles that have some drawings and layouts of what the development's going to look like, open it up to the community. The idea of having the district commissioner there is not necessarily a bad idea. It just shows that the district commissioner is there representing the constituents. Not all the commissioners have to be there. There's no formal decisions that are being there. It's more of an information session because the project is already approved, so there's nothing that's going to happen that's going to change the project moving forward, other than an opportunity for the developer to help educate the surrounding community.
Mayor.
The whole idea is to prevent people coming to a meeting like this and complaining about what's being built. We need to control the dialogue and be upfront about it. So we're quite happy to set up the meeting. We just think, to your point, that having a commissioner there with showing support, we're not expecting the commissioner necessarily to partake. We would provide an open line to the neighborhood where we would answer as we go forward. We would deal with any questions, any complaints, any issues. But we just think from a simple point of view, hey, the city's behind this, let's support.
No, I think communication is key, and we applaud you for, like Mr. Forte said, previous mayor, that was his wish, was that any development, we would have these neighborhood meetings. So we applaud you for doing it. We can work the details out, but Commissioner Curry?
I'll just say, the News Journal property, that's not in our city. However, we had a lot of people from the city that went there and were involved. They all contacted me, wanted me to at least be there. So I did show up, and I answered some questions, but the developer really facilitated and
Right.
took the reins of the meeting. I was just there. I basically answered questions at the beginning, if I knew them, before the meeting got started. And then I was just there in case anything arises that I might be able to answer. I do not know everything, so I would not be able to answer every question necessarily, but, and because this is obviously
district.
my district, I do not have a problem doing that. If you can get one of my business cards from the city clerk, and just reach out to me by either email, phone call, text, whatever.
Thank you. And we wouldn't expect you to answer the question. We're the subject matter.
Oh, no, I'm always happy to answer the community's questions and talk to them, but if I don't know the answer, I might have to defer to you, or, I don't have a problem doing that. Just reach out to me, and we'll work out the logistics, the schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll go ahead and recess our regular city commission meeting and convene as a community redevelopment agency and entertain ordinance 2025-R-1.
CRA Resolution Number 2025-R-1 for title only, by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, approving the agreement with FPL in the amount of $3,402,555 as an option where all of the work is to be completed by FPL with listed exceptions, and authorize the city manager to execute the same, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Anything to add, Joe?
I'll let Ann give you a quick update, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Antoine Corey, Public Works. During the last phase 1 and phase 2, we learned a lot. In the first phase and second phase, the city contracted the conduits Then the FPL came back later and installed it. Well, we ran into a lot of problems, a lot of changes, a lot of change orders. We had about six to seven change orders just for the old contractor to come back and fix certain things that's happened. What this is awarding all the work to be done by FPL. They laid the conduits, they installed their cables in it, then other utilities can come in a little bit later, where you can locate these lines that are in the ground and try to avoid it without having to make any changes.
Any questions for Antoine? Thank you, sir. Joe, you have anything else to add?
No, this process of using FPL to do the whole project is more expensive than the other proposals from FPL, but the other proposals being lower requires us to then hire a third-party contractor to do the other work, make up the difference. So like Antoine said, we just think having one contractor, the owner of the utility FPL, come in and do everything from start to finish, the secondaries running the pipe, it would just be a lot smoother, not as many complications. You know, you and I talked on the last project when there was a broken pipe and we couldn't find somebody to be responsible for it. And I think this is just going to be the most efficient way to do this phase of the project.
There's no finger pointing, there's less change orders. I think it's the prudent way to go.
And quicker.
And there's one person to go to.
Anyone have any questions for Joe?
What's that?
Anyone have any questions of staff at this time? At this time, I'll open up for audience participation. Would anyone like to discuss this item? Seeing none, I'll close audience participation and entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion needed? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously, 4-0. At this time, we'll adjourn as a community redevelopment agency and reconvene as the regular city commission meeting. And we're on item 6 right now, which is time for public comments. This is time for the audience to address the commission on anything not on our regular agenda. Would anyone like to address the commission? Okay, gentleman in the blue shirt was first.
You can either come up now or
He's on deck and then you're third.
whichever you want. Okay.
Kyle Stickney, 1490 Graham Avenue. God might not have set up all the wicked leaders on the local and state and federal level, but he's however sustaining them. Why would that be? It's because the heathens that rule over the wicked people themselves refuse to turn from their filthy ways. The hypocrites rise up with worldly zeal when danger rushes to their doorstep, but when the water subsides, so does their so-called zeal. And then it's right back to their all-run lifestyle of sin and stagnant complacency. This is exactly why God allows wicked rulers to reign over wicked people. It's a curse. It's a biblical curse. The hypocrite citizens are full of darkness themselves. They love drunkenness, pot shops, sin distribution centers, fornication, gambling, mindless entertainment, and sports idolatry. They love their mindless drugs, antidepressants, anxiety medication, their sexual perversions. They put every sin above God, and God hates it. You've got a nation full of devils that'll come up and cuss out their mouth, and they've got a personal problem, but won't hold themselves to the same standard that they hold their city officials to. And their personal problems subsides, they develop voluntary amnesia. Imagine if these people who try to command their city officials to do right actually had a righteous biblical leadership. All these strip clubs, pot shops, liquor stores, lotto gambling stations, and all these mind-altering drugs and anxiety medications would be outlawed. Imagine that. This city and this nation as a whole would devour itself and it would eat itself alive. So first and foremost, citizens, pull the plank out of your own eye that you might see clearly to help remove the beam that's in your local city official's eye. Until then, God's going to continue to sustain wicked government officials that can be persuaded and bought out for a couple few $1 million of filthy special interest money on every level of government in every city. Study ancient Israel. When the people rebelled against God, he rose up with wicked leadership to captivate them into bondage and slavery. When they finally forsook their idolatry and baby sacrifice at the altar of Moloch, God then rose up a righteous ruler to free them. When they rebelled against God again, he rose up another wicked ruler, putting them back into bondage. This nation now refers to baby murder as health care, and sex outside of marriage is considered a good thing. You think God looks down and smiles at this trash? Not a chance. James chapter 5 says, "Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted. Your garments are moth-eaten, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall bear witness against you. You shall eat your flesh as if it were fire. You've heaped up treasure for yourself on the last days." Your unjust gain is going to bear witness against you. And God's not slack concerning his promise, but he's long-suffering. But there's coming a day when you take your last breath, it's not going to be mercy day, it's going to be judgment day. So take heed to the words of the Bible. Do what's right.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. No public outbursts, please. Public outbursts will be asked to leave the chambers. Yes, sir, you're next. You're next, sir. Please state your name and address the chair, sir.
Yeah, I know the microphone, or can you put this, yeah, I'll put it down. There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I usually don't read stuff, but I want to read this one.
Your name and your city you live in, sir?
My name is Gabriel Mark. I'm the pastor of the Ridgewood Avenue Baptist Church in the Daytona Rescue Mission, 501 Ridgewood Avenue, Holly Hill, Florida. Church been there for 100 years. For decades, the city of Holly Hill has been cursed with the devils of sex perversion in the commission and police department. Rick Glass, city commissioner in Holly Hill, was arrested by the Volusia County Sheriff in 2011 for having sex with a retarded patient of the ARC retarded home that he worked for. He was fired from his job. Holly Hill elected officials took no action on this horrendous crime and acted like it never happened. They said it was a personal matter for Commissioner Glass. When Glass' term ended, he was hired by the city of Holly Hill and retired from there with benefits. In 2024, a 104-page investigative report was made by Sheriff Mike Chitwood in regards to sexual misconduct by Holly Hill Police Chief and Captain and Sergeant that can't even read more writing. It was against police officers and citizens of Holly Hill. There was overwhelming evidence provided in this report that the police officials that committed these crimes should have been arrested and prosecuted. City Manager Joe Forte and the commission elected to do nothing, and they let these crimes go unpunished. These sex devils continue to operate in the city officials of Holly Hill to this very day, and they must be removed. My prayer to Almighty God is that He would do this as soon as possible in any way He pleases to honor His holy name and the citizens of Holly Hill. And I got 20 seconds left. What I say, watch out. Judgment is coming. Beware. The hand of God is mighty and powerful. God bless you all. I'm praying for you.
Thank you, sir. Who else would like to, I'm sorry, you're next. Who wants to be on deck? Who wants to come up next?
Danielle Latona, 904 Russell Court. I'm going to ask for an additional 30 seconds because I'm going to give out pictures, give you guys time to look at them if that's okay.
All right, just give them to the clerk and then we'll start your
They're
time.
turned inside out. There's a set for, oh, one is for me, sorry. Okay. All right, I handed out 4 pictures for each commissioner and a set to share with you guys. And I'd like to, as I'm asking questions, I know you don't have to answer them, but I'd like to know if anybody knows what these are. And then I'll explain what they are. And then I'll have questions about what they are. But first, I want to thank Valerie for the phone call and the email, and Mr. Forte. But I'm going to ask if you can send them again. Unfortunately, my phone went bonkers, and I lost all my emails because I didn't have them backed up. So if you can please
That's
send me
always fun.
the email. That's okay. My pictures were saved. I don't care about them. So thank you, Mr. Forte, for the answers to the questions from the last meeting. These pictures, and again, I want to stress, I am not at all, one bit, picking up any specific organization or group of people. It's just an observation. These are pictures of the new RV park being built. And it's very alarming. If you guys don't see what I see, I'm very concerned. It is about 3 feet above the street. And I'd like to know if this was pre-approved, as it is now, or was this amended after they saw what type of water we receive in this area? Because it is not fair to us taxpayers that constantly get flooded, and for the homeowners in this area who have not been flooded yet, who will now, I guarantee you, I don't need to be an engineer, I don't need to be a doctor, I don't need to be a psychiatrist, I just need to have, my brain needs to be the size of a mustard seed to see what this is going to do. All these new developments that are being built are built to a different standard. And they're all built higher, which I completely understand. While it saves them, the rest of us in this city do not get that same opportunity. And I'm starting to believe, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm starting to believe that this is purposely done. So all of us that are in older neighborhoods get flooded out so new developments can go in and more money can come into the city.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the commission on anything not on our agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close audience participation. I was going to ask you or Brian to respond to that based on the latest engineering for that project.
So I'll have Brian come up too, but with that particular project, that RV park, we actually stopped the project 2 weeks ago because of what we saw going on out there. And we learned that some of the work being done was not in conformance with the plans that had been submitted. The Volusia County had made some modifications to their plans that the city did not approve. It was looked at internally by Antoine. We sent that information off to the city's engineer of record, and they've had several comments. And then in the meantime, we've had several phone calls with the engineers, and we had an in-person meeting with the city's engineer as well as the developer's engineer last week, and we've reached agreements on what's not being done right and what needs to be corrected. So that is in the process. So we're aware of what's going on out there. We did put a stop to the project, and they are making modifications to the site development. Brian, you got anything else to add?
No, City Manager, that pretty much wraps it up. I would only add that at this point, the only thing that they're able to work on is everything that is east of the canal. Everything west of the canal still remains completely shut down. But the observations that were made are correct. They did continue to develop that project despite it having some changes that had been made by Volusia County. Those changes had not been approved through us. And as soon as the day that we found out about it, staff went out and stopped that project. The The earth movers stopped, all of the workers had to go until we can find out exactly what changes have been made. We don't want to see any flooding there. We want to be sure that that's not going to be an issue. And at this point, the entire west side of that project, which is really where the majority of the stormwater activity is taking place, until that's all reanalyzed and we are confident that it's now compliant, that part of the project, which is more than half of the project, will remain dormant.
Thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but it's my understanding that the east side, which appears to be the most alarming, the east side looks to be higher. From what I have been told, the east side had to be raised because the west side was higher. So if they left the west side higher, the east would be down and all the water would do what you're fearful of. But by raising the east side, they can now catch any runoff. That's a dry retention pond there, what we're looking at. So any runoff is going to be caught in that higher elevation. It's what I've been told. So, and staff is on it. Joe and I went out there as soon as we saw it. It was alarming to see the sidewalk that much higher than our sidewalk. But they are in constant negotiations with the engineers and the project manager. And Commissioner Curry, you had something to add?
No, I did not. I just wanted
Okay.
him brought up to explain
Okay.
all that.
Okay. Thank you. Try to gather my thoughts here. I don't know if there was anything else worth commenting on.
I think that was about it.
Okay, so we will now move on to item 7, which is the approval of the minutes from December 10th, 2024 regular commission meeting and the December 23rd, 2024 special called meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Anyone from the audience like to discuss our minutes? Seeing none, well, you have a motion and a second, sorry, not paying attention. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. I will now move to item 8, which is the consent agenda, which normally a single motion approves all things on the consent agenda, but there's only one thing on our consent agenda this evening. Would anyone from the audience like to discuss our consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second from someone?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. We'll now move to item 9, which is our regular agenda. And the first item on our regular agenda is Resolution 2025-R-3.
Resolution number 2025-R-3 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, approving the grant agreement H1114 with the Florida Division of Emergency Management in the amount of $360,000 for the provision and installation of 3 lift station bypass pumps, approving a budget amendment request transferring $479,289 to fully fund this project prior to reimbursement and authorizing the city manager to execute the same, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Anything else to add, Joe?
The lift stations are located at 1300 Riverside Drive near Walker Street. That's lift station 7. Lift station 14 is 660 6th Street near Dahlia. And lift station 16 is at 834 8th Street near Narcissus Avenue.
Any questions for staff at this time?
No.
Anyone from the audience like to discuss this issue? Seeing none, we'll close audience participation and entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Any discussion needed?
I'm just glad that we're installing bypass pumps.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Now we'll go to item 2, which is Resolution 2025-R-4.
Resolution number 2025-R-4 by title only for first and only reading. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, approving the agreement with FPL in the amount of $3,402,555 as an option where all of the work is to be completed by FPL with listed exceptions, and authorize the city manager to execute the same, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Shouldn't be any questions. This is what we just discussed in the CRA meeting, so it sounds familiar to everyone. Any questions from staff?
No.
Anyone from the audience like to discuss this matter? Seeing none, I'll close audience participation and entertain a motion for approval.
Motion for approval?
Second.
Any discussion necessary? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Now we'll move to item 3, which is Resolution 2025-R-5.
Resolution number 2025-R-5 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, waiving the bidding requirements for asphalt repairs and maintenance and approving expenditures for an annual amount not to exceed $75,000 to the Alternative Asphalt LLC, and authorize the city manager to execute any necessary price agreements proving for severability and providing for an effective date.
Anything else to add, Joe?
We did this last year, Mayor, and what we're doing is we're waiving the procurement process instead of going out to bid, and we're contracting with a local asphalt company to handle the small projects where we have some patching, some resurfacing that's needed in the city. Because they're local, there's not a large cost for getting the equipment on site, where some of these big companies, they're going to charge almost as much as the project just to do the deployment of the equipment. So we'd like to waive the procurement process and engage in a contract with the Alternative Asphalt to go ahead and handle these small projects within the city.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe?
No.
Anyone from the audience like to discuss this issue? Yes, sir. Come to the podium, state your name and the city you live in.
My name is Gabriel Varga. The other information is the same as what I said a few minutes ago. You need to take bids. You know the problem with a lot of cities, they got a good old boy system. And in the good old boy system, they get their buddies to do the job, and they reach, it might be true what Mr. Forte said. It might be true and it might not be true. He says that their equipment is close, and they won't have to move it as far, it'll be easier for them to do it. So there's no use taking bids. That's stupid. If it's true that they can do it cheaper, then let them bid. I'll say take no less than 3 bids. We got too many cities, this city included, that got the good old boy system. We're going to have Joe Blow do it. And that's not right. And I'm going to tell you something. The time has got to go away from city governments and state governments.
Sir, stay on task to this. You need to stay on
I'm
task.
talking about the bidding process. That's what I'm talking about, the bidding process. And I have a right to talk about it. And I claim the First Amendment of the United States.
Mayor, that is not, the agenda item is not related to state or national anything.
Okay, just city. Just city. I was trying to make you feel better, Ms. Curry.
I don't need to feel better, thank you.
Okay, good.
I feel
But
wonderful.
anyway, let's just keep it at the city level. Too many city governments, like Holly Hill, all kinds of city governments. Daytona does it, and others do it. You got the good old boy system. You're gonna have their friend do it. We got too many things going on like that and not taking bids. Anytime you see government not taking bids, generally shenanigans. Mr. Forte can say all he wants about they can do it cheaper. Well, make a bid and let 2 other people make a bid if they can do it cheaper. And that's what I'm saying, and I got 43 more seconds to say it, Miss Bobblehead. Anyway.
Address the chairman, sir. Address me. Address me.
Address you. Yes,
Yes, sir. You address me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Even give you 4 seconds. I've said about all I need to say. Take bids. I would not do this. If you go along with shenanigans if you voted in, give someone else a shot at it. That's all I got to say.
Anyone else from the audience like to address this issue? Seeing none, I'll close audience participation and entertain a motion for approval.
I will make a motion for approval, but I have a comment afterwards.
Is there a second?
Yes, that's second.
Any discussion needed?
Yes,
Breathe.
thank you. I am breathing. First, I would just like to clear up the misnomer that the city doesn't do bids. The city has it in our policy that we do bids. This is simply patchwork. Anything less than $75,000 to a local Holly Hill business. So we take bids all day long on all kinds of stuff. This happens to be patching up to $75,000. Anything over that does require a bid. So I just wanted everybody to have the correct information.
And it's actually $75,000 cumulative for the year.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
For the-
cumulative for the year.
Why are we waiting?
Sir, your time is up. Any other comments?
That is all the comments I have. I just wanted everybody to have the correct information.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to item 4, which is Resolution 2025-R-6.
Resolution 2025-R-6 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, appointing a member to the Board of Planning and Appeals and setting forth the term and expiration date for said member and providing an effective date. The name inserted is for John Danio.
Anything, Joe?
We were notified that Lorraine Geiger is stepping down from the Board of Planning and Appeals effective immediately, and we anticipate that Loretta Arthur will be stepping down after the February meeting. During February, the City Commission will appoint 5 members to the Board of Planning and Appeals for another 2-year term. We're asking to appoint John Danio to this position to fill the unexpired term of Lorraine Geiger, and then to be appointed for a 2-year term beginning in February. Typically, we have each commissioner appoint a member to the Board of Planning and Appeals. The 2 positions that are becoming available, which are Lorraine Geiger and Loretta Arthur, are Commission 1 and 2 appointments. And I believe Commissioner Curry is going to make the formal appointment for, motion for Mr. Danio.
Lorraine was my appointment. I can't think of anybody more qualified, Mr. Danio. After spending all the time you have up here on the commission, I'd say you're qualified for the Board of Planning and Appeals. So I will happily nominate John Danio. I almost said commissioner.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close audience participation and entertain an official motion.
I guess I'll make the motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion needed?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Danio.
I can't believe you put yourself back in the public spotlight, but have at it.
Now we're going to move on to public hearings. And our first item this evening is ordinance 2024-0-3080.
Ordinance number 2024-0-3080, by title only for second and final reading, an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, creating Section 58-135, camping or sleeping on public property prohibited, to comply with Florida Statute Section 125.0231, to prohibit the camping or sleeping on public property under certain terms and conditions, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
I just want to pause for 1 second. The ladies in the front row, I've never seen them here before. It looked like they were here for an issue.
They are, and I was going to bring it up under my commissioner comments.
Okay, all right, thanks. I just didn't want them to have missed something and sit through the whole
No,
meeting.
I'm going to bring it up under my commissioner comments. Thank you.
I'm sorry to jump out of line, but I saw them.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Joey, have anything else to add?
This is the second reading on this ordinance, and there is a line of progressive regulation. So in other words, when they come across a person that's violating this ordinance in the state law, they'll start out with giving them a warning. It's possible that they can give them a citation, a trespass order, and then ultimately arrest. Within there, they'll also make a recommendation to transport anyone out to the First Step Shelter or any of the other facilities that may be available on a temporary basis for any of these folks.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to make it clear that this is state law we're following,
Yes, it's
not coming up with it ourselves.
No, it's
Mandated
We're required to do it by state law.
it's Florida Statute 125.0231.
Thank you, Mayor, that's all I had.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience like to comment on this? Yes, sir. I think you know the routine.
I guess this seems to be,
Your name, sir?
my name is Gabriel Marga, I'm the pastor, Ridgewood Avenue Baptist Church, and the Daytona Rescue Mission that cares about homeless people. For 50 years in the Volusia County area, most of that time has been in Holly Hill. It looks to me like you don't like people sleeping out in the bus stop out here, so you're gonna
Address me, sir.
put them in.
Address me.
I guess. I don't think you ought to be picking on homeless people. This city needs to be homeless friendly, not opposed to homeless.
Mr. Varga,
I'm
Mr.
talking
Varga, look
about
at me.
sleeping.
listen, look at me. Look at me. You looking at me?
I'm
This was
looking at you.
required by state law. This isn't our choice.
When you read the state law,
I quoted it in here.
And I just mentioned it.
Yeah, it's
you
quoted
didn't
in
read it.
here.
Let me read it to me. Let me hear it.
You want me to pull it up and read it for you?
No. Don't be taking my time now. Well,
We're using your time, sir. This is your time.
Save my time. I got-
There's no saving time, sir.
Go ahead, you keep talking, then I'll interrupt
Keep
you
talking. You have 3 minutes to talk.
when I find it.
You have 1 minute and 35 seconds to talk.
Is he gonna read that thing?
Go ahead, I gotta pull up the statute.
If you want him to use your time,
It's statute 125.0231. You could look it up on Google when you get home.
Well, you see how I'm supposed to read it? You ain't gonna read it.
I'm pulling it up, I'll read it to you.
Quit picking on homeless people. Start being homeless friendly. Homeless people ain't hurt you. What you doing, Paolo?
I'm not messing with your time, I'm simply holding a picture up.
Be quiet when I'm talking. I got 46 seconds left. You don't like homeless people sleeping. Well, you ain't got no place to sleep because you won't allow us to have a shelter here. You ain't gonna allow that.
We just approved the project.
You've already
tonight.
approved it.
That's all below.
Oh my God, I can't with
That's
you.
below you.
I can't with you.
You'll never have no homeless people sleeping here.
I can't
Because you
with
don't like homeless. You're not bored, you never have it.
Calm down.
Breathe, Penny.
I'm trying. It's difficult.
How many minutes, well, how much time did you?
You got 8 seconds.
Minutes before I ding you.
You get 6
6
seconds.
seconds.
6
Another
seconds.
minute?
No, sir, please return to your,
2 minutes?
You're done.
return to your seat, sir. Return to your seat, please. Would anyone else from the audience like to discuss this matter before us? Seeing none, we'll close audience participation. Can't make this stuff up, people. I entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, there is, I'm sorry. Everybody heard what those people presented at the beginning of our meeting. Some of their clientele are homeless. They're trying to provide housing for. It's also workforce housing. Can't believe everything everybody says. Even a pastor.
And some of the things that we comply with, the pecking order is the state's in charge. The state can pass a law, and we have to comply with it, as every other city in the state of Florida has to. So we're doing housekeeping to prevent potential lawsuits if we don't comply with the new law.
That's right.
Mayor, did you want me to read the statute, or do you want me?
How long is it, Scott? Yeah, go ahead and read it into the record. You know, some things fall on deaf ears, and it's not going to do any good anyway.
I mean, I can email it to him, and unfortunately, I have his email address.
Just go ahead and read it for the record.
Florida Statute 125.0231, public camping and public sleeping is the title to it. Subsection 2 says, except as provided in subsection 3, a county or municipality may not authorize or otherwise allow any person to regularly engage in public camping or sleeping on any public property, including, but not limited to, any public building or its grounds, and any public right-of-way under the jurisdiction of the county or municipality as applicable. Subsection 3, which is said as except as provided in subsection 3, deals with the county. It says, a county may, by majority vote of the county's governing body, designate property owned by the county or a municipality within the boundaries of the county to be used for a continuous period of no longer than 1 year for the purpose of public camping or sleeping. So basically, the city is prohibited from allowing it, and it took effect January 1st. Now we can be sued if we allow people to do this. And what we adopted was exactly what state law says, and the burden is on the county now to, if they want, they can designate areas where homeless people can go. And this is a state law. We have no choice in this.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. I think there's 25 people in the room that understand that and one that doesn't. No, sir, your time is up. Your time is up, sir. Audience participation is closed. We have a motion on the floor and a second to entertain. This is not your time. If you keep interrupting my meeting, I'm going to ask you to leave. You've been warned once, 2 times, 3 times you're out. Just letting you know. Now I've warned you twice. The 3rd time, I'll ask the captain to remove you, and you'll be banned from the meeting for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, throw me out.
Mayor, I'm going to ask that Pastor Varga, Mr. Varga, be removed for disruption of the meeting.
Show me the ordinance why you can put me out.
We're going to adjourn this meeting for 10 minutes. And we'll go ahead and reconvene our meeting. Are we rolling yet, Val? Yes. Okay. We broadcast live and record, so we have to make sure we're broadcasting to the world. So we'll go ahead and reconvene. And we have, the next item is ordinance 2025-0-3081.
Ordinance number 2025-0-3081 by title only for first reading. An ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, approving the first major amendment to the Fountainhead Mixed-Use Plan Unit Development, MPUD Development Agreement, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing the effective date.
Before you start, Brian, I just want to get my thoughts back together. Val, did we vote on the last thing?
Yeah,
Yes.
we did.
We did vote?
Illinois, yes.
Yep.
I know we had a motion and a second, but we voted?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sorry, I'm not usually this disheveled. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. So there's a major amendment before you this evening that has to do with Fountainhead Development, which is at 1200 Synergy Way, which is formerly known as 1200 Center Avenue. And you'll hear a lot of information, so I thought maybe what I would do is just say in a nutshell what we're looking at. We're looking at a reduction, a request to reduce headquarters office space while at the same time increasing the ability to do medical offices and medical uses. So one use requested to go down, and another use is requesting to have additional office space and square footage. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're looking at. So, as mentioned, this is a major amendment and a rezone for Fountainhead, which is a mixed-use plan unit development. It's located at 1200 Synergy Way. The property is zoned mixed-use development, which is a PD. It has a mixed-use 3 future land use, which is basically a future land use that allows a variety of uses, and it is within our CRA redevelopment area. Going back to March 30th of 2017, Fountainhead developers and the city entered into a development agreement, which is shown in your staff report as Exhibit A, and that is recorded in the public records of Volusia County. The development plan currently in place allows for a variety of uses on the site, such as corporate headquarters, medical office, fitness center, restaurant, daycare, multifamily residential units, and there is permitted square footages that are assigned to each use. The plan currently in place also outlines additional information with respect to landscaping, building styles, required parking, and such. The overall amount of commercial development permitted per the adopted 2017 agreement is 170,172 square feet. And since the project is to be developed in phases, the agreement required that phase 1 of the development consist at a minimum of 21,000 square feet of corporate headquarters and 7,000 square feet of academy space for a total of 28,000 square feet in phase 1. In November of 2021, Fountainhead applied for and received approval for a minor MPUD amendment that's shown in Exhibit B of your staff report. And that amendment did make some changes with respect to building sizes. It enlarged the retention pond, it increased parking, and it showed a future plaza area. However, there were no proposed changes to the amount of square footage allocated to uses on the property, which is what we're looking at now. At the time of the application for the minor MPUD amendment, the applicant had completed phase 1, their requirements, by developing 29,410 square feet devoted to headquarter and academy space. Then in July of 2022, Fountainhead purchased an additional 5.2 acres of property known as Lot 1 of the Fountainhead plat from the city of Holly Hill. So now the applicant is applying for a major MPUD amendment, and the purpose of this request is to change the allocation of uses on Lot 2 of the Fountainhead development. Currently, the agreement allows or allocates 110,172 square feet of office space for use as Fountainhead's corporate headquarters and 16,000 square feet for medical office and clinic uses. The major amendment seeks to reduce the corporate headquarter use to 80,000 square feet from 172,000 square feet, and increase the medical office and clinic use to 40,000 square feet from 16,000 square feet. Overall, the amendment will have the effect of reducing the project's development by 6,172 square feet. The reason for the request is that at this time, Fountainhead is working with a program called PACE, which stands for Program of All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. And they are seeking to locate at their site and provide all-inclusive health care for adult persons, including medication management to serve only those persons who are enrolled in the program. There's not going to be a retail pharmacy for the use of the general public. There are no drug treatment programs involved, and service to non-elderly adults would be similar to what would be received in a nursing home or physical rehabilitation center if they chose that path. Now, while the current goal is for a PACE program to occupy the medical office and medical use spaces, the applicant would like the ability to work with any program that will provide the uses that are listed in the proposed amended development agreement. Now, the amended development agreement has been changed since the BOPA meeting, and I'll go over what those changes are in more detail in a little bit. And that is because staff requested that the applicant provide more detail as to what the uses were going to be. And the applicant did comply with that. Their attorney provided us a nice summary of uses that are, this evening were handed a copy of the proposed development agreement. And in that, it shows that the uses would be things such as, and I won't go through all of them, but things such as nursing services, nutritional counseling, occupational therapy, physical therapy, transportation to and from the facility, there'd be medication management, primary care. The hours of operation in the facility would be between 8 and 5. And it says that all care and services shall be limited to outpatient care and service to clients only. There shall be no inpatient service or overnight stays at the facility provided to clients. No care or services provided at the facility shall be provided to the public, and all care and services provided at the facility are limited to clients only.
Brian, can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
The original agenda, Exhibit B, is basically, you gave us another copy here. But on the original, it says the reduction of corporate headquarters would be from 110 to 80, and medical office would be increased from 16 to 30. But what you gave us tonight says 16 to 40.
That's correct, and so it's been amended. So what I thought I would do is go through the presentation,
Okay.
and then at the end, once you had some context as to what everything was about, tell you what the tweaks were
Okay.
since the BOPA.
Okay.
But you are absolutely correct, Mayor, in picking that up. So those are some of the types of uses that they would like to be able to have at the site. In your staff report, it does give you some information. I won't go over all the details as far as pace, but there are some things such as the project census is up to 600 enrolled participants with a cap of 150 on the site at any one time, and that there would be approximately 100 full-time employees. So that's some more details that we were given with regard to the PACE program. Now, since the healthcare provider will occupy more than 16,000 square feet of space currently allocated for such a use, the major amendment is necessary in order to provide the additional square footage. As the amount of square footage allocated for healthcare increases within the building, the amount available for corporate office space is being reduced. There are no changes in the permitted uses with regard to this amendment. However, there is a change in the amount of square footage allocated to two uses, and again, an overall reduction of 6,172 square feet for the project overall.
But Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, the original intent was that the corporate headquarters would be 110. That would be its own standalone building. But the 16,000 square feet medical office would have been a separate building. So we're not just talking about a shifting of square footage of uses, we're talking about the elimination of an additional building, correct?
We are talking about the elimination overall of over 6,000 square feet.
Square footage, but
Square footage. Now, whether or not that would occur in a separate building, I don't know.
well,
It is possible that it would, it is possible that it could be the size of one of the proposed buildings if that use was going to locate in that building.
I signed the original use, the original contract, so.
Right.
It was my impression that there would be several buildings there, a corporate headquarters, a medical office, a fitness center, a daycare facility, and a restaurant, all open to the public.
Yes, you're talking about on parcel 1?
The original, the amendment that we're changing,
Yes.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy.
No, you are correct. And that is certainly one way of looking at it with regard to a building going away.
Thank you.
In no case is the minimum amount of square footage required in Phase 1 being reduced. So the minimum amount of square footage required in Phase 1 is still going to be 28,000 square feet. However, again, based on the attached proposed amended development agreement, it does state that 15,000 square feet shall remain devoted to Synergy Billing Headquarters. So there still would be a minimum of 15,000 square feet devoted to Synergy Billing Headquarters in Phase 1. One of the things that we look at with regard to a rezoning is whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and whether or not it's consistent with the land development code. And the proposed MPUD major amendment has been evaluated for compatibility with the land development regulations of Holly Hill.
Past, huh?
Blast from the past, yes, I apologize, Holly Hill. And since a major amendment is a rezone, the Board of Planning and Appeals and the City Commission must evaluate it to determine if it complies with Chapter 114, Section 82-372 of the Land Development Regulations. Now, that section provides 8 points for the board to consider in making its decision with regard to its rezone. The attachment that's labeled Section 82-372 contains 8 points as well as the applicant's responses. Staff finds that the requested MPUD major amendment is consistent with the city's land development regulations with respect to the plan development. Now, with regard to the comprehensive plan, staff has reviewed the request in light of the comprehensive plan and finds that it is consistent with the assigned mixed-use 3 future land use designation and all other applicable policies of the comprehensive plan. So before making staff's recommendation, what I would do is just tell you that the changes that occurred now that you have kind of a context, what occurred since the BOPA meeting. You're correct, Mayor, in that in the BOPA meeting, it was the amount of square footage originally requested for medical was 30,000 square feet. The applicant evaluated that and felt that they might need more, so now they are requesting 40,000 square feet. So that is a change since.
So how many square feet are in that building currently? The building that's on the corporate headquarters, how many square feet are in that building?
I would have to defer to the applicant on that. I can tell you, I can't read, I can't.
I think it's 20.
So 24,795 in, Doug, can you bring up the amended, that, right there. So, Mayor, in the building,
The yellow building.
yes, the yellow building off to the west, in the center there, is about 24.
So where are all these people? How are we going to get 120,000 square feet into a 25,000 square foot building?
Well, because what we're looking at this point is we're just looking at Phase 1 on Lot 2. Now, if they decide, keep in mind that the rest of the corporate headquarters and square footages that are going to be allocated that's including the entire site built out, not just Lot 2 and Phase 1. But what they're looking to do with this particular amendment and how it will affect Phase 1 and the buildings that are currently there is right now, the buildings that are currently there have 29,000 square feet more or less of corporate headquarters and academy office space. In that, they are meeting their requirement for Phase 1. So just looking right now for Phase 1, what they'd like to do is reduce some of the headquarters space they would leave and then be replaced with medical uses. So when we're talking about 170,000 and 110, we're talking about the entire site.
Right, but what's important to me is what's there now. So if there's and I'm a rounder. there's 25,000 square feet in that yellow building.
And then what they're also including there is the small building that's off to the far left.
Okay, how many square feet's in that?
4560.
So we're talking 30,000 square feet, basically, of
Yes.
buildings there now.
Yes,
And that is the corporate headquarters. Basically takes all that, the 30,000 square feet.
yes, sir.
So I guess my question will be from the applicant, how much of that 30,000 square feet is going to be occupied by Pace and how, immediately? And how much is going to be occupied by Synergy Billing headquarters?
Well, minimum of 15,000 square feet is going to remain there
Of Synergy Billing.
of Synergy building.
So basically, what they're asking to do is take half of that building and turn it over to Pace.
Yes, sir.
Those buildings, okay, all right. I'm just trying to get it in my head.
Yes, no, you're absolutely correct.
I have a quick.
Yes, ma'am.
When I first received this, I was under the impression that Pace was a company. But through my research, I found out that PACE is actually a program approved by Medicaid. So who's the company?
It is, when we were talking.
It's not
with
PACE, because that's the
Yeah,
acronym for a program.
Right, right.
Who's
That's
the
correct.
company? I mean, if the
Yeah.
applicant needs to answer me,
Yes,
that's
that's a
fine.
question that the applicant
Okay,
would need to answer.
I'll wait
as to
till
who
they
the
come.
specific company
All right.
is.
Yeah, because it was my understanding when I first received this that it was a company, but that's not true. It's
Right.
a program.
I think, at least when the city manager and I first met with them to talk about this, I won't speak for the city manager, my impression was that it was a company as well.
Yeah.
That it was a case company that was.
So I'll just ask the
You're
applicant.
right that.
Thank
yeah,
you.
It is a
Okay.
program. And then, one of the other changes has been that the medical uses have been described in greater detail. And that's basically, that's basically it. There hasn't been any change with regard to the amount of, and they have committed to having at least 15,000 square feet remain in the current Phase 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Brian, maybe it's just not computing inside my head, so help me. If we're looking at a round figure of 30,000 square feet that's built there now for headquarters, and we were originally promised 110 for headquarters.
Oh, yes, over.
I say promise
over the
because
life
there
of
was
the-
this whole elaborate plan that we were sold for that it was going to be a Google East campus. So 10 years ago is what I'm talking about. I know you weren't here then. That's what we were first told, is the headquarters was going to be 110,000. Right now, we're looking at 30,000, so we're not even halfway there. John's the numbers guy, not me. Where, it's not computing where we're even going to get what they're asking for the headquarters and this PACE program. So please help me visually see that on here.
Well, keep in mind, this is, what you're looking at for Phase 1 is part of an overall development plan that could take years
It
to
was
build
a whole
out.
Google East campus.
Correct.
That's what we were told.
Right. So because we really didn't have a time limit as to when the entire project was going to
Our
be
mistake.
built out, what we did is we said, okay, you have to, at a minimum, to start, Phase 1, you have to have 28,000 square feet.
To be incentivized.
Yes.
Yes, to be
And
incentivized.
then, after that, the plan, the development agreement allowed them to develop the rest of the project. Once Phase 1 was done, it allowed them to develop the rest of the project in their own time period and in their own fashion. Now, these figures that we're looking at, 110,000, and originally the 16,000 square feet, and then the amounts for the restaurant, and that was a representation of what the project would look like when it was complete, when it was totally built out. It included parcels of land that the applicant doesn't actually own at this point in time. There was the idea that they would acquire these parcels. So when you look at that number, that 110, you're talking about a long period of time over a much larger area. So what this is with regard to saying, hey, we want to go from, 28,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet, and then put the difference in pace in phase one. That's what they're asking to do here. It is true, as you pointed out, Mayor, that overall, when you look at the overall project is being reduced by a little over 6,000 square feet. So,
Thanks, Brian.
Still,
The applicant might clear something
okay,
up for you.
I'll let the applicant.
Mr. Watts is chomping at the bit. He's got some answers for us. I can see
I'm chomping at the
I can
bit,
see it.
Mr. Watts.
I can feel him.
I can see-
So, what I'll do, if it pleases the commission, I'll give my staff recommendation and then go from there.
Okay.
So, at this point, staff recommends that the city commission adopt the ordinance enacting a major amendment to the mixed-use plan unit development, MPUD, specifically reallocating square footages assigned for the corporate headquarters and medical uses on Lot 2 of the Fountainhead plat located at 1200 Synergy Way, while all other provisions, conditions, and requirements of the adopted 2017 agreement and approved minor amendment shall remain in full force and effect.
I just, before you come up, Mark, I think one thing that is giving me heartburn, and I'm sensing it's giving Commissioner Curry heartburn, is that if this was just a simple PUD modification, it probably could have been on a consent agenda. But because it's an incentivized, I think what you might be confusing, there's no time frame
Yes.
on the PUD agreement.
But there is the
There's a
incentive.
time frame on the incentive agreement. And so the question that I ask is, if this was just a simple PUD agreement, I don't really, it doesn't really matter, do it. But when I ask myself the question, is this project now watered down? If this project was brought to us with the yellow buildings, and we were told that 15,000 would be Synergy Billing and 15,000 would be PACE, would we have incentivized it? And so, I know they're two separate things, but because we're joined at the hip with this thing, I have to put a lot of weight into how does this rezoning affect the positive or negative on the incentive agreement. That's my heartburn. If it was just a rezoning, all in favor, bim, bam, boom. But because we've incentivized this with taxpayer money, envisioning all the green and the multi-story buildings and the 500 people working there and the restaurant and all these things that were the dream, it didn't happen. And so what we have to deal with is reality. What we have now are the yellow buildings. And what we will have now, 12 months from now, will be the yellow buildings. There might be some buildings under construction, but I don't think there's any way in heck an additional thing can be built on that thing within the next 12 months and CO'd. So what we have to deal with is, what do we have now? How does that affect the incentive agreement? And I don't know how we tie those two together, if we can legally tie them together, but I can't make this rezoning recommendation in good conscience, because the PUD is a negotiation give and take, and I think we're giving a lot more and getting nothing back in return. So if the applicant wants this rezoning, my suggestion would be any jobs that are created by PACE are outside of the incentive agreement. I know in reality that for them to be incentivized for the employment, they have to work there for 12 months. The CRA is going to be gone in 18 months. In reality, they're not going to be able to hire a bunch of people and retain them all for 12 months, and we'll incentivize them. So in reality, if the applicant were to give that up, they're not really giving up anything, because it probably won't happen. They won't hire a bunch of people but in my mind, it's a negotiation, and if the applicant were willing to give something up, I'd be more in favor of giving something up and meeting them in the middle. Because at the end of the day, it's not, in reality, it's not going to cost the applicant any reimbursement, because you could hire 100 people today, and in this market, 60 of them won't work there in 90 days. So you're going to be past the deadline anyway. So that's full disclosure. How I'm looking at this thing is that it's not just a simple rezoning. And for the new commissioners here, this is a very complicated issue. It's been before this city for the last 10 years. There's been modifications and changes. And why didn't it happen? The economy, COVID, all this bad stuff happened. We all want to see that. I hope that thing comes to fruition. But what we have to deal with is what we have now. And I can't separate the left side of my brain and the right side of my brain to get on board with this right now. So we'll let the applicant try to sway me, but that's where I'm sitting.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. For the record, Mark Watts at the law firm of Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard, DeLand. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and appreciate the time that we've spent working with your staff and city manager and city attorney to bring what's before you. A lot of things to kind of cover and address in the comments that I've heard so far, but I think let me start by kind of boiling down I think what the simple aspect of the thing in front of you now. I agree and acknowledge there's a whole lot of other complications tied to it. I'll talk about those as well. Simply put, when we came here in 2016 and 2017, remember because I was in the process of moving into my current house as we were doing all this.
A long time ago.
What's that?
It was a long time ago.
I moved out of it and I'm renovating it now, so it's there's been a long life cycle, but we all came in with a lot of different expectations and certain expectations with what with regard to the redevelopment of the old school site.
Wait a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
There was not any expectations until it was presented to us.
No, and I agree.
Okay, I just want to clear that
What
up.
I'm saying is that we came in with expectations of what this was to be.
Okay,
Vision
okay.
Vision of, what the Fountainhead property was being redeveloped as. And over time, for a myriad of reasons, plans have shifted and changed, and what we're here before you this evening is asking you to continue working with us to kind of shift the vision slightly, to reallocate some of the square footages. Now, Mr. Mayor, to your questions and points about other buildings and the build out of the campus. If you look in the first amendment on the first page of it, there's a lot of square footages in the area and space that's listed there. The change that we're asking you to make with this specific application before you is to take the maximum square footage allowed for corporate headquarters and reduce it from 110,000 to 80,000. And to increase the maximum of the medical use from 16,000 to 40,000. We still have 30,000 square feet of office, 4,000 square feet of fitness center, child daycare at 6,000, specialty restaurants that would be open and available to the public at 4,000 square feet, and 88 residential dwelling units on parcel 4.
Right, but are there any plans at this time to build those?
I think there's a constant state of planning going on with regard to the development of the overall site. So one of the things that, the opportunity that Fountainhead is working on bringing to the site really is focused on increasing the amount of activity at the site. I think anytime,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Anytime you're dealing with the overall development of the site, things like daycare uses, specialty restaurants, all of those depend on the activity being increased on the site in order for there to be customers, in order for there to be people that are going to utilize those other uses. I think everybody's, I will say from our side, our client's expectation was they would have a larger, operation moving into this. I think that's reflected in the incentive agreement with regard to the employment numbers. Those numbers have not performed the way that they were expected to. So what they have done is look at what other opportunities are there to continue to bring vitality to the site, continue to bring in more activity that will continue to drive the further development of the site toward the expectations that we had in the beginning of a site where you've got a lot of vibrancy, you've got a lot of different activity going on. So right now, the specific plan is we've got approximately 29,000 and change square feet of building on the site. We're not looking at reducing or removing any of the corporate headquarters employees or activity. We're talking about consolidating and condensing it into a portion of the building and working to bring in a PACE program that's run by Acute Care Health Services. That's the
Thank
name
you.
of the to, again, bring more employees in, bring more activity onto the site. And we think that's a very positive thing. Again, 100 employees, 150 patients and clients that are there on a daily basis throughout the course of the week. We think that's the type of activity that will continue to help improve the site. The other thing that helps do is helps to trigger the further expansion. Because when you have that activity coming into the site and you have the compression of the corporate headquarters operation into a smaller space, it is the thing that we believe will also catalyze the expansion of the next building, if you want, to expand the corporate headquarters space and be able to kind of build it out into additional space. Now, we had the conversation with the city manager earlier this week, or last week, I guess it was, with regard to the incentive agreement. And I agree that there's a lot of things that are in the incentive agreement. There's about 18 months left on the timeline of the incentive agreement. Most of the additional incentives that are there would not kick in unless there's additional buildings that are brought to the site. Some of those tax increment things, again, wouldn't be triggered unless and until there's additional development on the site. So making the change, I don't think it creates an opportunity for us to participate in more of that agreement than already is occurring on the site because, again, the likelihood of site plan, construction.
Just the employees, the employee incentive. And you mentioned 100 employees with PACE.
That's the projection. Is that there's
How many employees are at the corporate headquarters right now?
There's approximately 70, if I remember the discussion from the BOPA meeting correctly.
So
you've got about 170 employees plus about 150 clients in the PACE program that would be on site within that phase one building.
So I keep blending the two but if the whole idea was to incentivize the corporate headquarters of Fountainhead, and we're getting caught up in square footage, PACE is going to take over a third, Fountainhead will take over 2/3, but Fountainhead only has 70% of the employees that PACE is bringing in. So, and I think, in negotiations, it's a give and take for me anyways. And so I think we can all agree that the likelihood of any more buildings being CO'd and triggering incentives are off the table, right? And so the only thing that I'm concerned about is that if PACE were to go out and hire a bunch of employees, and I don't remember, does anyone remember what the original number when Fountainhead started, how many employees they had at the time? 125?
I think it was 125,
Yeah, I think
125 roughly?
and they were gonna bring 500.
So,
The max, yeah, we were.
so we got to 125, we're down to 70. So then anything over 125, they're entitled to incentivize, based on additional jobs.
I don't remember the number that we've incentivized. I think it's closer to 92. I'm not sure if we got over 100
Right.
employees.
Well, let's just,
Well, we were originally told he had 125 that he was bringing,
but I'm
but
just,
that didn't happen.
I'm just trying to look
It has not
at,
been incentivized that much.
Yeah.
no, so I'm just looking at, so let's just say we've incentivized 100, and they added another 100. And if the likelihood, all 100 of those people are hired within the next 3 months, and they all work another 12 months, then they're entitled to an incentive from the city. I'm saying I would be much more favorable of whatever they want to do there, since half the incentive is for the buildings and the other half is for the employees. Just throw the whole darn thing out and just do whatever the heck you want to there. That's my position, and so I'm not here to kill this tonight. I'm here to move it forward tonight, but if we don't have some changes on second reading, I will not be in favor of it, and I'm probably sure a couple other commissioners won't either.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot of my concern, because when we originally heard this 10 years ago, it might have actually been a little before that, because I know I made trips to the office, and I was given a dog and pony show, and again, I refer to the terminology I was given of a Google Campus East, with all the things that Mayor Penny mentioned earlier. And so far, that's what we have 10 years later. That is not a Google Campus East. That's not even close. So my problem is, first of all, how am I going to know that us changing the square footage is really going to matter, that the buildings are going to go up for this square footage? If all you're doing right now is dividing what you have as headquarters, why do you need more space? You don't have the PACE employees coming in. 100 employees are going to come in on day one?
I'm not sure what.
No,
the
it just-
business model is.
it's-
Again, we're out here on a zoning issue, so I
Okay.
don't know the operational side of the business.
It just seems like it would be, we're putting the cart before the horse.
Basically, my major problem is the incentive agreement. The taxpayers of this city were tasked with paying incentives for the growth on that campus and for employees, neither of which they ever got. And so I'm telling you, I'm a no on this unless the incentive agreement is changed and done away with.
Well, it seems, in my opinion, that we don't need to increase the medical office use above to the 40,000 limit until we see some plans to review. If we were, I have no problem making it 15,000. Let's split the building in half. Half can be PACE and half can be Synergy. But to go all the way to 40, then 6 months from now, they come back and go, you know, Synergy's gonna work remotely now. So now it's, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so we water it down and water it down and water it down. So I hate to keep cutting you off, Mr. Watts, but I'm just trying to share my heartburn with this whole situation.
So let me address the heartburn itself, because again, you know, we're here talking about zoning, but I know that this is like a zoning case with some emotional baggage, right? So we've all got to deal with a little bit of the emotional baggage.
Well, I don't know if I'd say emotional baggage, I'd say missed promises. I have to look out for the citizens of this community, Mr. Watts, you know that.
But the one thing, Commissioner Curry, that the incentives haven't been paid by the citizens because thresholds haven't been made.
Correct, yes.
So
Performance-based.
there is the potential of incentives, and we spent a lot of time working on what the potential of those incentives would be. But let's back up for just a second. With regard to the square footage, Mr. Mayor, and the maximum, you're right. You were asking for 40,000 square feet, a reallocation of the use from corporate headquarters to medical. In addition to working with PACE, there's another provider or two that we are in discussions with that may also be able to locate to the property. And so that's why we're asking for the additional square footage. Set aside the, if you will, for a moment. Look at this just, if I can ask you to look at it from a zoning perspective. The key things that I think 10 years ago, actually it wasn't here in the beginning of it. I came in about a year or two into the discussions. But set those aside for just a second. The principal goal was to take a piece of property that's in the center of the city that was vacant, that was in need of redevelopment, and encourage activity and redevelopment so that you could bring jobs into the property and you could create activity in a part of the city that we really wanted to encourage activity. So setting aside the you know, kind of the expectations, the promises, and everything else with regard to the incentive agreement, what we're trying to do is bring in that activity and bring in those jobs, whether they are directly tied to this energy program or whether there are other jobs that are coming in. Not asking you to qualify any different jobs right now, not asking you to, you know, to really address anything with regard to the incentive agreement at this moment, but I hear loud and clear the point that you want to have that discussion before this gets
And but back to a question I never thought of until right now is, why are we even here? Because if you only need 15,000, you've got approval for 16,000 now. So you could do this without coming here, without coming to Boca, or without changing anything. And my concern is that come back with the plans, because you're gonna have to build another building to get anyone else in there.
So the specific point of why we're here is if you look at the next page of your amendment where the uses are being added as well.
Right.
And so when we work through the discussion with staff, you know, we need to add the use so that you can permit this activity to come onto the property, because it was broader than what qualified under the medical, the specific, medical office use that was listed in the original development agreement. So we had to add in the use. BOPA, we had a conversation with staff and with BOPA last week. BOPA asked us to be more specific with the breakdown of the use, so we've added that in partnership with your staff and your city attorney to provide that clarity. But we had to come here for a major amendment to add the use no matter what.
Right, but it'd be an easier question to just redefine the use, and you've already got the square footage.
I think, Mark, is it fair to say that Pace needs some level of commitment to be able to get to 40,000 and not just the 15 or the 18? So what they're saying is, I'm not going to enter into this agreement only getting 15,000 because I'm going to need 40, and if I can't get the commitment to 40, then why am I even going to start at 15?
And I get that, but to the other side of it, if we give them 40, and all of a sudden they say, oh, well, we really only need 30, and we'll just take your whole corporate headquarters and Synergy building won't even be there anymore. And they come back to this commission and is like, oh, well, something is better than nothing.
Can I say a few things?
Sure.
Okay. First, the reason they need to change it is we have phase one of this development. And phase one was 28,000 square feet. 21,000 of it was for Synergy building, 7,000 was Academy. That phase one language was then added to the incentive agreement. And they got no incentives until they completed phase one. And at least as it relates to the employee incentive. To do anything other than 21,000 square feet of Synergy building headquarters, they need to amend it.
Okay.
So that's why
Okay.
we're amending it. Now, one of the things, I don't know if I've said it here or to Joe, but I've said it, a change to zoning doesn't change the incentive agreement. You can change the zoning, you can ask for these other uses, and I mentioned it when I was talking to Mark. I said, now phase one has changed in the zoning, we haven't changed the incentive agreement.
Correct.
That's my point.
You
So
don't
why
get
change the
in-
zoning until we change the incentive agreement?
Well, we may not want to change the incentive agreement. You can go forward with your zoning, but you just lost all your incentives.
That's my point.
That's my point.
But I'm just saying, under the agreement, I'm just saying, currently
Right.
under the agreement, what paragraph 8 says in the incentive agreement, in the last line, the first payment of the new employee incentive shall be conditioned upon, A, the completion and certificate of occupancy being issued for all of phase 1 parcel 2 on exhibit C. And B, headquarters and all employees of Synergy building being permanently relocated to phase 1 parcel 2. To my knowledge, we've never amended this. I know there's been minor amendments to the PUD. We've never amended the incentive agreement. My copy of exhibit C, which I just referenced, is not good. I don't know what it exactly says. But I know phase 1 refers back to the phase 1 that you're talking about changing right now. And so, I'm not saying anybody's threatening anybody with litigation, but there's going to be a dispute. That's kind of where it is. Well, you changed the PUD, but you didn't change the incentive.
There has been threats to the city manager.
Well, not over this issue, but paragraph 8, yeah.
Over the entire thing.
Well, paragraph 8 for sure. We've had threats over that issue, but we're past that now. But I think it's important, at least in my opinion, a change to zoning doesn't automatically change our incentive agreement. Those are two separate documents. So just because phase 1 has now been changed, I think what I told Mark is, phase 1 has now been changed, and if they're not done with phase 1 now, with the zoning got approved, then they're not entitled to any incentives.
And
Because we haven't completed phase 1. And they can't complete.
So we've amended phase 1, and now there's no medical there, so it's not.
In essence, I think the city attorney's point is, and position is with regard to the incentive agreement, going to your point of, we want to terminate the incentive agreement or modify it in some ways. I think what the city attorney is saying is, in his opinion, it's automatic. When you change what happens in phase 1, there's an automatic turning off of the spigot, if you will, on the employment dollars under the incentive agreement.
Well, we'd have to look at, I would need a better picture of what exhibit C is. Because I'm looking at a copy that's on my computer. So I'd want to see a better picture of what is exhibit C in the incentive agreement. What is it actually?
And I get that, but the simple thing, because, you know, the attorneys get paid by the hour the longer they talk about this stuff. Simple,
lot of retainers.
the simple thing is, if we can mostly agree that most of the incentives are unattainable at this point. I think we can all agree, the building is unattainable.
I think that's accurate.
It's mostly unattainable. So why are we worrying about changing it if the applicant were come and say, listen, out of fair negotiations, we want to do this, forget that incentive agreement because we can't reach it. By golly, we know we can't reach it, and let's just move on. And that, boom, you got a 5-0 vote.
That's also
That fast.
my point.
So, and I fully understand and get that point. And I think that, you know, I think clearly from tonight, we need to have some follow-up discussions with staff.
I just don't want to rely on our attorney's position saying that it's a moot point,
Yeah.
and then we end up in litigation, and then
Understood.
blah, blah, blah.
Understood, understood. Going to
Right.
the zone, looking at the zone. So, you know, kind of, if I can get us just to focus on the change and what we're talking about with regard to the use.
I think you've got us on the zoning change.
Yeah.
But we aren't going to move forward on that until we find out how the zoning change affects the incentive agreement.
Understood.
I think you can get a 4-0
What I'm
vote.
hearing y'all say, honestly, is let's, as a condition of going forward with the zoning, we want to mutually agree to rescind the incentive agreement.
And if that takes tabling this first reading tonight, or we read it tonight and we bring it back and can negotiate this in the next 2 weeks, I'm all in favor of that. But I think, I haven't heard too much from the new commissioners. I hope you're listening.
Yes.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But I don't, if we can agree we're never going to get there, then why are we arguing about how changing to get there? Because we're never going to get there.
So, yeah, and I think that we, you know, we certainly, over the next 2 weeks, you know, before this would come to you for a final action, be able to resolve that, to meet, to kind of discuss where we are, and either agree or disagree, and and then it comes back to you. And you can, you know, vote it up or down based on how you feel about that. I think the point with regard to, that I was going to make with regard to zoning, if we just look at this property, its location, what collectively as a city you want to see happen there, and you had somebody come in, again.
No, it makes, let me speak.
It had what I wanted to see there.
Commissioner Curry, it makes perfect sense. If we can double the number of people on that campus, it doubles the need for a daycare. It doubles the need for a restaurant. I get it. It's just.
So in a vacuum.
Right.
In a vacuum, if I was standing here before you this evening saying, we want to bring in an 80,000 square foot corporate headquarters on that property and 40,000 square feet of medical in addition to all the other uses and the residences and everything else, I think you'd, again.
Boom, done.
Done deal. It's the baggage, right, that we need to address. So we're here talking about the zoning. I hear you loud and clear. I don't, you know, Jason's not with me this evening. I don't, you know, have him present to be able to say, I'm going to agree to stipulate this on anything. But I do know that I'm reading loud and clear what you're saying it's going to take to get through a second reading. And I'm more than happy to schedule the time with your staff.
And I need to ask Scott a question, because in rezonings, there's certain criteria that the applicant meets. It's almost an automatic, but since this is a PUD and it's a negotiation, we're not held to the same standards, correct?
No, it is still quasi judicial. It is still zoning. We are still negotiating an amendment to it. And it's still subject to the same zoning standards, that even if it was a straight zoning. Statutorily, we have to refer back to provisions of our code if we're going to deny rezone, even if it's a PUD.
Okay.
So there's still statutory, we still fall under that quasi-judicial, substantial competent evidence issue. But what we, you know, if they, and I understand Mark does not have the authority tonight to say, yeah, I'll agree to rescind on behalf of my client. I completely understand that.
No, it's a big ask, but it's.
But it is.
We're not. It doesn't cost you anything because you're never going to get there. And then it's almost a good faith effort. That's all I'm looking for.
And also that you did not incentivize this. Whether or not you would have incentivized this
Right.
is a totally different. You incentivized A, and A didn't show up.
Right, and I
it was
will.
all incentive based, so that it was performance based. So
Right, and I've been.
things didn't happen. So we still have property. There's still a lot of money sitting in the city's coffers over this. It's not like the taxpayers' money has gone out and nothing has.
Right.
So that we haven't given money and got nothing in return. We just got nothing, so we gave nothing, so.
No, and I will be reminded, I'm sure, that I made a statement 10 years ago that if the only thing that ever happens with this project is the library and the gymnasium are remodeled, we're better off than we were then. But if that was the only thing that was going to happen, I don't believe this commission would have incentivized it.
No.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I would not have.
Well, and I think that's exactly why the incentive agreement structure was.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's been a win-win for everyone. It's just,
Mayor,
yes, ma'am.
I have a question for you. I have a lot of heartburn with the incentive agreement now. And I've already stated why. Would it be better for us to ask Mr. Forte to go into negotiations, because I understand you can't do that right now, and get this ironed out, because otherwise, I'm going to be a no vote.
Would it be better? I would say probably the best thing to do is, I would prefer y'all do a conditional yes vote
Okay.
with the understanding that it doesn't come back until the parties negotiate this. Because if you're a no vote, then it doesn't come back.
Right, that's my, I don't want to kill this. I want it to come back so we can accomplish the goal.
If it's a yes vote, with the understanding that the incentive agreement needs to be addressed.
What would be the problem with having Mr. Forte go into negotiations and us just table this?
That would be better than a no vote.
Then that's probably better.
But why don't we procedurally, because time is money in these type of situations, and there may be a contract pending, I don't know.
That was going to be my comment.
So-
one of the things driving it is there is a contract.
So
I guess
if,
that would mean negotiations would have to go quickly, Mayor.
no, well, what we could do is, we could take a vote on this, assuming it passes tonight. I think all parties understand where this commission is leading. We have a meeting 2 weeks from now. Negotiation will begin tomorrow morning, maybe tonight, I don't know. But they will start talking about it. If they don't have an agreement brought back to us in 2 weeks for the second reading, it won't make the agenda. The second reading doesn't have to be 2 weeks from tonight. Second reading can be any time in the future. So my recommendation is that in the spirit of negotiation, in the spirit of cooperation and getting what we all want, if we had 200,000 square feet of restaurants and daycares, we would all be up here slapping each other on the back. It didn't happen, and we don't know why. It just didn't happen. So we got to deal with what we got. So my recommendation would be that let's stop talking about this. Let's bring up the public and see what they say about it. Hopefully they don't have too much to say about it. Then we'll take a motion. My goal would be that the motion passes with clear direction to bring this back for second reading.
And I think that, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you. I think that's a fair approach. We loud and clear hear your expectations for it to be scheduled for second reading. I will take those to my client. Obviously, Mike is.
His dad's right here.
My dad's the boss.
Jim is here, so, I think we can certainly leave here with that expectation. But again, I think from a zoning perspective, I
Right.
appreciate that as an approach because I think it does get us down the road.
Yeah, time is money, and I don't want to hold it up any longer. It has to be.
So,
Right.
Thank you. I'll sit down.
Okay.
If I
Thank
can back up if anybody's got questions.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience want to talk about this? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm not getting paid 400 an hour, so. 400?
Just tell us your name again.
Danielle from 904 Newcastle Court. And I want to thank you guys for bringing up what you guys brought up, because in the real world, a contract is a contract, and negotiations are negotiations. And 10 years later, this would have been like done and over with if the promises of what was supposed to happen haven't happened. I understand COVID, that's been a while ago. And it's been at least 6 years before COVID even happened that none of this stuff took place. And I have concerns about it, as well as some of the things that were spoken, because in the real world, I have no incentive to do anything if you give me what I want. Period. No restaurant, nothing else that was promised to be built if I get what I want right now. It could be another 10 years with, and I want this to happen. I think it's wonderful for Holly Hill. I mean, we don't have really restaurants here, we don't have hotels here, we don't have things that other cities have. So we're not looking not to build in our city. We're looking to build in our city and make it better and give jobs out to people. Whether only 60 of them stay or not, it's still jobs. I mean, it was supposed to be this number, we still only have 70 employees. Pace, we know a little bit about, but not really. You know, and if I'm gonna get a permit, and I'm telling you I'm opening up a business, I gotta tell you what it is and what type of people I'm gonna be serving. We have a little bit of an idea. I'm all for the elderly. I took care of my mom, 6 years paralyzed, and I wish we would have had programs for her that I had to fight with United to even get a bag of wipes. So,
I understand that.
I'm all for that in our community. The other thing is, and I know this might be off topic, but I don't think so, you know, we're building and building and building, and if there's 300 employees on the property, that's 300 flushes of a toilet that are going into our 80-year-old sewer system, and more water being used, and I hope that part of anything being done in this community building, that our infrastructure is priority, because we keep talking about how we want Holly Hill to be, how beautiful we want it, but never in the conversation is our 80-year-old infrastructure, that the first thing that floods in my house for the 4th time since 2009 are my toilets and my shower. It's not from the storm. It's not the floodwaters. It's the sewer system. And the more people we bring in, the more sewer system is being used. So with that being said,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you. Anyone else? Closing audience participation, and I entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion for approval.
We have a second?
Is there any conditions on that?
Oh, yes, I thought that was a sentence, sorry. With the condition that the incentives are evaluated and revised before the next reading. Would
Is
that
that
be the-
adequate? Negotiated incentive agreements are,
It could be for this reading, but under our comments, I need more direction than that, as far as what we want to negotiate the incentive agreement.
I,
You don't have to put in this motion, but I think before the end of the night,
Okay.
I need to get better direction from the commission.
all right, okay. So we have a motion to renegotiate the incentive agreements.
I think maybe if I said to eliminate the incentive.
No, just say to,
agreements,
just say to negotiate, and we'll give him
to
direction.
negotiate, yes.
And you're okay with that second?
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Anyone else want to talk about it? I could call for a roll call and see if Penny plays politics or not, but.
Never plays politics. Let me just real quick, I do want to, this is an outstanding thing, the program that I read, it's outstanding. And like you, I took care of my mom for 17 years, 3 or 4 of which she had dementia. This would have been great.
Yeah. We took care of my parents.
So I'm not against this. The incentive agreement's where my heartburn is. And because of Commissioner Snow's motion and the way she made it, I'm going to go ahead and vote yes this time. But I'm telling you, the second reading, it's going to be a problem otherwise. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for yours.
And I'm sorry I'm so tough on you sometimes.
It's all.
Mr. Curry, I've missed you over these past couple of years.
I bet you have.
Okay, so we have comments from Joe.
I don't think Mike should leave just yet. Got it?
Thanks, Mike.
All right, so start out with, there's a ribbon cutting next Tuesday at 3 o'clock at the new fire station.
Yay.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
remembers. So with regard to the incentive agreement, so I had an unrelated to this matter conversation with most of the representatives from Synergy Building, the Townhead Development last Friday, in regards to purchasing the options of, not the options, but the opportunity to purchase parcels 3 and 4. When I asked what the use of parcel 3 would be, it was explained that because of the expansion of the retention pond on parcel 1 and the potential development that they have coming forward, parcel 3 would be used as a parking lot. I said I don't want to incentivize a parking lot, and if I was going to sell parcel 3, we'd have to eliminate the incentive agreement to give you parcel 3 and/or parcel 4. That was my position. I didn't talk with you about it. I assumed that that is the direction that you would give me based on this conversation. Clearly, that is. For me to negotiate with the developer on this, I need a little bit more direction as to how far do you want me to negotiate this incentive agreement. You know, there are 3 main parts of the incentive agreement. There's the jobs incentive that's paid for out of the purchase money. There's the tax reimbursement that's paid for out of the construction dollars that are taxed, and they get reimbursed a certain portion of that amount of money. And then there's the other incentives, which is the waiving of permit fees, inspection fees, the percentage that they pay for development costs. All that's been waived. And then in addition to that, there's other things that are constants, which are the traffic impact analysis, which by this time I would probably assume or have to say that it's out of date and shouldn't be updated. There's concurrent fees that still have not yet, traffic concurrency fees that have not been resolved. Those are, I think, outside the incentive agreement, but still items that need to be negotiated. So I want a little bit of direction, and I'm glad the representatives are still here so that they don't think I'm just making this stuff up on my own. Where you want me to go with this in order for them to be successful in this zoning?
From what I heard tonight from myself and Commissioner Curry, was that the first 2, I believe, should be tied to this rezoning.
The first 2?
The first 2, the employees and the building. The permits and stuff are going to expire in 18 months, and the permits and waiving of permits should still apply to this parcel, but any future parcels should not apply.
So only allow the incentive agreement permit portion on parcel 2 and not on any other parcel?
That's what I would do, because that was the deal we made with them. There's not going to be any additional building on that parcel for the next 18 months. They're giving up a lot, but they're giving up nothing because it's not going to be done.
It's not attainable.
I don't know what's coming. I've only been told that there are plans forthcoming.
My concern is I don't know what I don't know, and in a negotiation, until I have all the facts, I can't lean more towards them because I don't know what they're doing. And I've learned to trust and verify, and I can't verify. That's my
Mr. Mayor.
problem. Yes, ma'am.
I feel the same about the incentive agreement, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not really obtainable anyway, and I'd say good faith goes a long way, but when it started 10 years ago, the good faith kind of went out the window. I can't trust in anything they tell me now that they're going to produce, because nothing has been produced like was originally said. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I'll go ahead and engage that conversation, but, you know, clearly neither party trusts each other.
Well, he's said that in messages to you, and I don't appreciate that. This commission has always done everything they could to try to help that project. And to say that he doesn't trust Holly Hill, he doesn't trust anything from here, we've never given him a reason not to trust us. And I take offense to that. That's all I have.
You guys want to comment? Anything?
I know it's kind of hard when you weren't here from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still not completely.
Well, you guys can meet with Joe individually, and he'll try to.
Yeah.
He can fill you in.
About 50% in.
All right.
I got an understanding of what
You got some direction there, Mr. Forte?
I think so.
Okay. What else you got for us?
That's all I got.
Mr. Simpson, you got anything for us? So we're going to do something different. So now that we have a commissioner assigned each month to the invocation, we're going to start with that same commissioner for closing comments. Because that way I don't have to remember who did it last. So
Okay.
it's your turn.
Thank you. I'm all set. I'm good.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have to first apologize to people. Mr. Varga just gets under my skin with all of his lies and misinformation, and I apologize for getting a little worked up. I'm very passionate about this community. I love this community. And to hear somebody belittle it and lie about it all the time just really irks me. And I should be able to control myself better, and I'm really trying hard. So just work with me on that. The people that were on the front row had talked to me just before the meeting. I knew nothing about what they spoke of, which was 700 Grove. Apparently, Brian has been working with them. I assured them that during my comments, I would bring it up and let him explain to them where the process was and everything that happens. Unfortunately, I know it was a little long to sit here. They left. I did give them my business card, but Brian, I will get with you in a day or two about that. But I did tell them I was going to bring it up, and I still wanted to do it even if they're not here. I appreciate you guys all coming here, being so involved with the city commission. Are you dragging them along? Is that what it is? I appreciate you being so involved. I just want to remind everybody that the workshop on the resiliency study is the 21st at 4, right? I know I got it in my calendar. The workshop's at 4 on the 21st?
Yes.
So don't forget about that, but remember, for workshops, we do not allow public participation, and that's all I have.
Jeff, what you got for us?
I don't have a whole lot to say. I did notice this as soon as it happened. I think the day I rode by, I had to come see Joe, and I mentioned it to Joe, and Joe, because they were just doing it. They were just doing it. And, I mean, we're literally just laying down the first 2x4. And I don't think Joe knew that it was, but I brought it to Joe's attention, and he was like, yeah, well, I'll look right into it. He did, I'm sure. But I'm concerned about this. I know, like you're saying, our next workshop, we're going to get more attention to the water issues that we need. I'm sorry I don't completely understand everything about Fountainhead. I think it's a great project. I went to school there. It was good to see something happen good to it because it sat there for so long. But I don't know enough about it. I just want you to know that, but I will. I promise you that by the next meeting. Other than that, I'm glad everybody had a good holiday. Looks like everybody made it through it, which is good. Thank you very much for being here this long and putting up with what we put up with.
Okay, so we've got, thank you, Mr. Dillon. Done? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't cut you off. So there's a lot of things happening in the city in the next couple weeks. The 17th, which is this Friday, it's a free concert, the Dueling Pianos from 7 to 9 right across the street. You do have to sign up online to buy a ticket, but you're just ordering a ticket, it's free. And honestly, if you showed up without a ticket, they'd probably let you in. Yeah, so I think there's over 900 tickets been distributed now. Typically, half of them show up, so maybe 400, and it's really going to depend on the weather. It's undercover, it's probably going to be cold. But Joe mentioned the ribbon cutting for the firehouse on the 21st. That's the same night as the vulnerability study, so that the 21st is going to be a busy day, busy afternoon and evening. And then on the 23rd, which is that Thursday, there's the Florida League of Cities dinner, which will be in Daytona Beach Shores. If commissioners want to attend and haven't signed up, I think you have till tomorrow. And then put on your calendar Valentine's Day, February 14th, which is a Friday from 7:30 to 9:30. Hayfire, which is a local country band, an awesome local country band. will be across the street at Pictona. Again, it's a free concert. Lots of good things going on, so hopefully you can make it. And
And they've played at a lot of big venues.
they do.
They are a good band.
So I'm sure I forgot something. Again, I apologize myself for being disheveled with some participation this evening. Try not to let it bother me, but when you receive 15 emails a day, praying for your death any way possible, and praying for your removal from office, and praying that people will see the maggots crawl from your eyes of your dead body, it gets disturbing. And quite honestly, it's unsettling to the point where a couple weeks ago I Googled how much is a bulletproof vest. It's unnerving. I brought up to Mr. Forte, I went to a meeting at St. Augustine Beach City Hall last week, and there was a metal detector in the chambers doors. And I'm gonna see what we can do about getting a metal detector put in here, for your safety and mine. I wanna go home tonight. And if there's a shooter here, they're gonna shoot the guy in the middle first, which is me.
I'm going this way.
But, you know, it's a very unsecure building, and I'm joking, but it's not something to be taken lightly. There are crazy people in this world. New Orleans, you know, we're just a microcosm of the craziness in the world, and I value my life and your lives and your safety much, too much to let anything come between us and our communications with you. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, just sitting here and not saying anything. If you need to come talk to us, come talk to us. We're very approachable. Sometimes we just look like jerks up here when I have to gavel you down, but it's trying to maintain order, and I think most of you know what we're dealing with. So without anything further before us, we will stand adjourned. Oh, wait, don't leave. So our local distillery, Copper Bottom Distillery, Jeremy Craig makes rum and vodka there. They're a craft distillery. There's a cable show